Hello, everyone. Um, Welcome to Humanizing Medicine Theory and Practice. हम आज ह्यूमनाइजिंग मेडिसिन के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं और मुझे कुछ डॉक्टर्स ने बोला कि ये कुछ सीधा साधा सा टॉपिक क्यों नहीं लेते, बट आई थिंक ये सबसे सीधा साधा टॉपिक है फॉर प्रैक्टिसिंग फिजिशियंस. बहुत सारी चीजें हैं जो हम एक्सपीरियंस करते हैं अपने क्लिनिक में एंड वी आर नॉट डिस्कसिंग इट विद समवन. And that is the main aim of this meeting called Humanizing Medicine. Um, so we are going to discuss this topic through a lot of perspectives. We have 2 days to discuss various aspects of doctor-patient interaction and the relationships which happen at healthcare setting, clinics and hospitals. When a person who is sick or who has come with some suffering and the other person is trying to help that, I think this is an interaction between two humans. So why are we saying humanizing? What is meant by human? I think to begin with, being human means being ephemeral, being short-lived, being mortal. We all know that we have a life which is not forever, and that begins the discussion. So while I was trying to write some introduction for this, and that's very difficult because it's a broad topic, and I will leave the panelists to discuss some of these issues. You must have seen the agenda. I just wrote a kind of a poem, and I would want to recite that. I hope people will be able to relate to this. It's a really humble attempt to express what I feel about it. So here I begin. Death may be here or far away. We die but once and live every day. What do you live for? For whom do you live? Do let me know, but keep it brief. I have an agenda and a strict time schedule to follow. A doctor is not supposed to get involved in your sorrow. They have lives to save, death to defy. Okay, then tell me, with all this suffering, it's not easy. I want to live, but tell me how and why. I think that is the crux. We have to understand what matters to a person. Why is that person living? What is his or her story? And through all these discussions, I think we'll be discussing some of these points. To begin with, I would invite a very close friend of mine, Dr. Sandeep Julka. He has very graciously recorded a video which emphasizes some of the aspects of doctor and patient relationship in today's world. The complexities of today's healthcare practice are huge. So Dr. Sandeep Julka, he's a consultant in the Department of Endocrinology at CHL Hospital, Indore. And he's been practicing in endocrinology for many years. He was with me at Sanjay Gandhi Postgraduate Institute of Medical Sciences, Lucknow, where we both did DM. He was my senior, where we underwent training in adult and pediatric endocrinology. That is my introduction. Dr. Sandeep, I think I'll ask you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, namaste and a warm welcome to today's wonderful meeting. So the meeting का नाम है Humanizing Medicine, but इसका दूसरा नाम मैंने दिया कि why wasn't I told about this 25 years back when I entered MD Medicine. It is wonderful. The topics are exciting. एक कहावत है इंग्लिश में कोटेशन है कि the best time to plant a tree was 20 years back, the next best time is now. So even if I learn something about it 22 years down the practice, it'll be great. Preparing for this because we really had to do a little bit of research, it dawned on me that we can do so much more for our patients. तो हमारा ये एक प्रयास है एक वीडियो द्वारा जिसमें कि हमने पेशेंट से उनका ओपिनियन जानने की कोशिश करी, which is very very important. Unless we know their side of story, we cannot improve. and it is totally unedited, and they actually went ballistic in my clinic, and they really put their heart out. So I request Neeraj ji to play the video. Thank you very much.
Namaste, this is Dr. Sandeep Julka. Welcome to our conference Humanizing Medicine, Theory and Practice. The doctor-patient relationship is very, very important. It forms the basis of long-lasting trust, which is lifelong. Right from the time the patient books the appointment to the time the patient leaves the clinic, you have to partner him in his health journey. I got a beautiful quote by Terry Canale which sums up the patient-doctor relationship. The patient will never care how much you know unless or until they know how much you care. So, in order to know more about the doctor-patient relationship, I got this mnemonic from Dr. K.K. Agrawal's lecture, the late Dr. K.K. Agrawal, which is alert. Now in alert, A stands for acknowledgement, where you acknowledge the patient's presence in the clinic. You greet the patient. You make sure that the patient is very, very comfortable in the clinic. L stands for listening. You give a very patient hearing. Listen to everything the patient has to say. E, explain. You must explain everything, not just about the disease, but all other factors contributing to the present malady. R is recall. After having explained everything, make sure that the patient understands and ask him to recall everything we've spoken to the patient. T stands for thanking the patient. It is very, very important that you thank the patient for giving us the opportunity to help him. And also I have put another T, that is trust. Unless you gain the trust of the patient, any therapy will not be successful. Going back to our roots, Maharishi Atre almost 3000 years back mentioned important components of doctor-patient relationship. He stated that 4 things have to be in absolute synchrony for any treatment to be successful. 1, the physician has to be well informed, the patient has to be compliant, and there has to be an absolute rapport between the patient and the physician. The drug has to be effective, and the attendant and the caregiver has to be supportive. It is only then any therapy is successful. So hopefully our little effort will go a long way in helping us improve doctor-patient relationship. Thank you and Jai Hind.
हेलो, मैं वंदना और ये मेरा बेटा है सक्षम. ही इज़ 13 ईयर ओल्ड. 2018 जब ये 9 साल का था तब से इसको डायबिटीज़ है और तब से लेके अभी तक इसकी आज तक भी H1AC कंट्रोल में नहीं आई है. अभी मतलब बहुत सारी चीज़ें तभी भी कंफ्यूजिंग थी, आज की तारीख में भी कंफ्यूजिंग है. उस समय इंसुलिन लगाना नहीं आता था, इंसुलिन से डर मुझे लगता था, इसे बहुत लगता था. उस समय भी बहुत सारे मैनेजमेंट इश्यूज़ थे, डाइट से रिलेटेड इश्यूज़ थे. आज भी वही कंटिन्यू है. 9 साल में भी मुझे बहुत मुश्किल होती थी इसकी डाइट मैनेज करने में, इसके इंसुलिन मैनेज करने में, और आज भी वही परेशानियां हैं. स्कूल में मतलब ये कैसे अपनी वो मेंटेन करेगा, क्योंकि एक्टिविटी पीरियड है. एक्टिविटी पीरियड में बच्चे बहुत ज़्यादा और ये एक हाइपर एक्टिव बच्चा है, तो इसलिए मुझे ऐसा लगता है हमेशा कि मैं तो इसको एक प्रॉपर डाइट के हिसाब से लगा के आ जाऊंगी. और इसकी मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम स्कूल में लो ही होती आई है जब भी इसका गेम्स पीरियड रहा है. तो मैं हमेशा ये चाहती हूँ कि एक पर्टिकुलर टाइम के लिए मतलब इंसुलिन के अलावा और कुछ ऐसा ऑप्शन होना चाहिए जिससे मतलब वो एटलीस्ट हाइपोग्लाइसेमिक ना हो. और सेकंड चीज़ ये है कि जब भी हम हमारे डॉक्टर के पास आते हैं तो सबसे पहला क्वेश्चन तो जो मेरा आज की तारीख में ये है कि ये एक ग्रोथ रिलेटेड बहुत सारे इश्यूज़ हैं मेरे दिमाग में. ग्रोथ मतलब इसके फ्यूचर के हिसाब से इसकी ग्रोथ, प्लस इसके डाइट से रिलेटेड, क्योंकि अब क्या है कि ये एक टीनेज में जा रहा है. इस टीनेज में इसको बहुत सारे इमोशनल चेंजेस हैं इसकी लाइफ में, बहुत सारे हार्मोनल चेंजेस हैं. तो वो बहुत सारी चीज़ें क्या होती हैं, डायबिटीज़ के साथ मैनेज करने में इसको बहुत दिक्कतें हो रही हैं. तो डाइटिशियन का जब भी मैं हर क्वार्टर में आ रही हूँ तो हमारे डॉक्टर के पास डाइटिशियन का एक ऐसा प्रॉपर मतलब वो होना चाहिए कि वो इसको हर चीज़ एक्सप्लेन कर सके. मुझे एक्सप्लेन कर सके, क्योंकि हमारी लाइफ मतलब मैं 7 से 8 घंटे जॉब पे रहती हूँ, तो बहुत सारी चीज़ें मैनेज करना मुश्किल होती हैं। तो ये मतलब वो मैनेजमेंट हमेशा मैं डाइटिशियन के साथ मेरा हर बार का एक सिटिंग हो, क्योंकि हर बार नहीं हो पाता है। फिर उसके अलावा अब जैसे ये बहुत ग्रोइंग एज में है, और एक कहीं ना कहीं इसका एक डिससेटिस्फेक्शन है अपने लाइफ को लेके, और हर महीने में 1-2 बार ऐसा होता है कि ये एकदम चिढ़ जाता है कि ये मेरे साथ ही क्यों हो रहा है, मैं ही क्यों हमेशा इंजेक्शन लगा रहा हूँ, और बच्चों को तो नहीं लग रहा है, इवन इसके कजिन्स को नहीं लग रहा है, पूरी फैमिली में मैं ही अकेले क्यों ये सब झेल रहा हूँ। फिर उसके अलावा पढ़ाई से रिलेटेड कई बार ये एडवांटेज भी लेता है, वो भी है, लेकिन क्या है कि जैसे कोई एक साइकोलॉजिकल एक असिस्टेंस होना चाहिए हमारे डॉक्टर के पास, कि जैसे वो बच्चे को समझा सके कि इट इज़ अ पार्ट ऑफ लाइफ नाउ। और ये सब जो चीज़ें हैं, डाइट ये, और एक मतलब एक मोटिवेशनल, जैसे जो सर जब भी हमारे पास एक साइकोलॉजिकल अगर असिस्टेंस रहती है, तो मोटिवेशनल भी इन लोग को गाइडेंस मिले, डाइट से रिलेटेड क्वार्टरली भी आ रहे हैं, तो एक बार का एक वो हो जाता है, ब्रेन स्टॉर्मिंग हो जाती है कि नहीं नहीं अपने को यही चीज़ें ध्यान रखनी है। प्लस उसके अलावा जो ग्रोथ है, मतलब ये जो उसकी एज है, उसमें से ग्रोथ पैरामीटर इतने स्ट्रिक्टली मॉनिटर होना चाहिए कि अगर हम कुछ भी इसमें हमको और क्या क्या कर सकते हैं, वो हमारे डॉक्टर के पास आके हमको मिलना चाहिए। प्लस उसके बाद हम भले हम 3-4 साल से हम इंसुलिन यूज़ कर रहे हैं, फिर भी हमको वो इंसुलिन की गाइडेंस हर बार मिलनी चाहिए कि हाँ इसको ऐसे ही लगाना है, इंसुलिन को ऐसे मैनेज करना है, ये सब चीज़ों की गाइडेंस हमको कंटिन्यू मिलना चाहिए।
Hello, my name is Ramkrishna here. I am at Indore, and we all know that our society, our country had a very tough time during the second second time when we had got COVID in our country. During that time, we all know that many of our very own, they have suffered a lot during that period. Even my father, he was around 80 years of age, he was also affected. In fact, my whole family was affected during that time. We all got infected in our house, my mother, myself, my wife and my kids. So the situation was so tough, people were wanting to help but they were not able to help, and completely all the pressure came on the medical fraternity. We all had to depend on the doctors, hospitals. At that time it happened so unfortunately, very of our very close known doctors, they were also unfortunately not able to help much because the situation was such. All the hospitals were overflowing, no places, no beds in the hospital, we all know. Fortunately, during that time, one of my very close friend doctors, he helped me out. Somehow we could admit my father in the hospital. Here very important things happened which I realized. One thing is, we all know that when we go to a doctor, as our elders told, doctors are as good as gods. So we are completely dependent, we completely play into their hands. The same thing happened now also, and the situations were very different pre-COVID and during COVID and what it is now. I feel now many patients and doctors, they all have realized how important the communication, how important how you get in touch with the patients or their relatives. So communication plays a very important part. Any doctor we see, communication is very important. That is how the doctor can connect to the patient. If he communicates well, he connects to the patients. Then comes the cure, of course. So when there is a platform where the doctor and the patient, they are able to communicate well, it helps the patients a lot. So that barrier of communication between the doctor and patient, to break that barrier, the most important part is played by the doctor. Of course, in our country the doctors are already overstressed with work. Some people, some patients, they understand that, some patients they can't. So, it is in the hands of the doctor how well they are able to communicate with the patient, that is very important. So, this part of communication plays a very important part. The aura of the doctor when you meet him, that itself cures you first of all. Of course, the medicines and they play a very important part, but how it is presented, any disease or any problem is always problematic for the patient, but how well the doctor is able to manage with the patient, that is also equally very important. So, I feel that communication with the patient, how he explains the situation, how the feedback is given to the patient and his relative, that matters a lot.
Hello, I am Bharti Iyer. I stay in Indore, and we just heard my husband talking about our experience where my father-in-law was admitted to the hospital and we were all affected. It's easy to criticize, but I first want to start with appreciating what happened well, and then later on come to the points of what could have been better in, could have made us feel much better there. I'll tell you what went really well. As he said, it was one of our very close friends who took upon himself to take care of my father-in-law. You didn't believe, he used to take me out into the ICU to make sure that I'm meeting Papa, I'm able to see him. Of course, it didn't add much to my father-in-law's health, but what it definitely did was give us that boost of energy that he's still around, and gave us the confidence that he might still revive. And he also put up a team of doctors. My father-in-law was a high diabetic. He had a multi-organ failure. So what he also did, the doctor, what he did was, he put up his team of specialists and he introduced me and my husband to that team, and he said, this is the doctor who is going to handle this particular problem, and this is so and so doctor who is going to handle this problem. And somehow both morning and evening we used to get over the phone, we used to get a kind of a progress report, I would say, which gave us an idea of what my father-in-law was going through. So we had that in the back of our mind. We knew that there was a savior who was standing for us with our father-in-law, with my father-in-law, and taking care of things for us in our own absence, because since we ourselves were positive, we couldn't really visit the hospital as much as we wanted to. So this doctor and his team, they took upon themselves to play the role that ideally me and my husband should have played for our father. So they took upon themselves to take care of him, make sure that we got the report about what is happening with him, what is going to be the next course of action as far as medication is concerned. And at one point when it came to a critical stage, they also had to give us the bad news about how it is going to turn out. It was a very emotional moment where we had to take a decision about what needs to be done. He had to be put on to the, what do you call it? On the ventilator. The doctor, he explained us completely about the pros and cons of it, and he was also very frank enough in telling us whether it was worth the shot or not. So being an IT professional, I see multiple things here, the communication part of it. Not only the communication, first being able to connect with the patient, with his kith and kin, to be able to understand their mental, physical, and also the socio-economic is what I would say, their status. Being able to understand how much is it that they can really take care of the patient, and what is it that the doctor himself can come forward and help them out with. Being able to communicate with them in their own terms, be able to explain them the criticality of the situation, because if you were to take all the medical terms, possibly I might not be able to understand everything, but come down to my level of understanding of the situation and explain it to me, I might take a much better decision, do that. and keep me posted on what is happening with the patient at any point of time. That gives me a confidence as well as a peace of mind somewhere, where I know that yes, my doctor is fully in control of the situation. He knows what is happening, he knows what is the next step, and he's also keeping me in loop of everything. So these were the very positive things that happened with in our experience with my father-in-law. Long back, around 20 years back, my grandfather was had a paralytic stroke, and we took him to a very old Ayurvedic doctor. And that doctor, in his first 2 visits, he used to ask so many questions. He would take around 45 minutes to an hour just questioning either the patient or his caretaker, a lot of questions. And I was a youngster then, and somehow he overheard me talking to my grandma saying that this doctor asked too many questions. And it was so nice of that doctor. He overheard it. He called me, and he had no need to explain this to me, but he did explain it. And he said, "Beta, the patients come to us, the doctors, with their final result of what has happened to them, because that's all they know. But as a doctor, it is my duty, my responsibility to find out the root cause of the person's problem. And that root cause could stem from anywhere, not just the physical ailment. I'll need to understand the mental framework of the person, the background that the person that he comes from, what is the current status of what he is going through, and of course the physical ailment itself. And it is my responsibility that I make my patient talk to me. I need to make him comfortable enough and ask all the relevant questions, because the patient is not really going to know what is affecting him, what has really got him into the current state that he is in. So as a doctor, I feel that it is my responsibility to ask all the relevant questions and then make a very conscious decision of where the problem is stemming from, and attend to that root cause of the patient, rather than just attending to the final outcome of the disease. So that's the reason I talk so much to my patient. That's the reason I ask so many questions to the patient. So do you still think I talk a lot? Do you still think I ask too many questions? So that is what that nearly 80-plus-year-old doctor had explained to me, and I understood the importance of a doctor asking so many questions to the patient, which unfortunately in today's doctor I see is a bit lacking. When I go to a doctor, all that they ask me is कि अच्छा क्या हो रहा है, कब से हो रहा है, and I think the conversation ends there. I am not explained what is happening to me and why is it happening to me, because once I also know the why, it is also possible that as a patient I take more care of myself. Of course the final responsibility of taking care of myself is mine, but given in a logical answer of what is happening and why it is happening, I think I'll be able to take care of myself a bit more. And I think it's a doctor who can build that bond with the patient and give the patient that confidence and that comfort level to come back, heal themselves, and come back to life with a full force.
That was those two cases actually were important in so many ways. There were so many points that can be discussed from that.